here, and this is what they voted for. Well, what did they vote for? What they voted for was right up there on top, to relieve traffic congestion and improve safety. Madam Chair, you know what your record is in this nation? You are 13th worst in pollution. 13th. You are 5th worst in congestion. So, as a matter of fact, you haven't achieved what the voters voted for. And you know why you have the provision to change by the 2/3 vote? Exactly what's happening across this nation. Change. Exactly what the voters want in our county. Change. And what are you doing? No change at all. You actually said that. You don't want to change. Well, how are we going to get to a sustainable community if we don't change? How are we going to get an energy policy if we don't change? How are we going to have affordable housing if we don't change this? The preponderance of money going to roads. Now, transit is, can I have that next slide, please? Because the next speaker is coming up to speak to that. Joni is going to talk about, no, the one right there. Yeah, let's keep that up there. So, to end my part of the presentation here, we suggest that this misnamed, ill-conceived motion hastily put forward here, that you simply table it, retract it. It is not for the welfare of the people. It is for the welfare of developers who want roads to their sprawl subdivisions. We all know that. And, Madam Chair, we have got to start investing in transit. We have to help transit out in this time of need, just like you have wisely supported the hunger crisis. Thank you.
I'm sorry to bother you again. Just so happens you have another issue up here. My name is Joni Halpern once again, and I'm director of the Supportive Parents Information Network. And it's an organization that represents the voices of low-income persons throughout San Diego County. I'm hoping that you will consider what is happening to low-income persons. I know it's come to your attention that they're being excised out of the economic spectrum. They can't compete because transportation is one of their biggest hurdles. And every time you vote for things that allocate money towards development of roads, you actually impair your communities, because who are the caregivers? Who are the low-wage workers? Who are the landscapers? Who are the house cleaners? They can't even get to where they're trying to go because transportation now is so expensive. I've lived in San Diego almost all my life, and I've always thought that we just never really made the commitment to public transit that we needed to make it a viable system for lots of people to use, so that they would have a choice about whether they drove their car if they had that choice. But I represent people who have no choice at all. And now they're paying $5 a day to get to work, and their wages aren't that high. I'm just, their wages aren't high enough to pay for that every day on a weekly basis and a daily basis. So they're almost prisoners of their own neighborhoods because they can't get anywhere. They can't take their kids to the beach. They can't go anywhere. Mr. Cox, you know that because you see it. I mean, a lot of you guys know this stuff. And when you look at that ballot language there, I'm a person, I read every single proposition, every single one. I don't just read the proposition. I read all the background stuff, and I read the law. And I swear, the other day when I was at the Sandag meeting, that's the first time I ever really had an excellent rendition of what this ballot proposition is supposed to do. So when people say to you, you know what, you really can't do any of those other 3 bullets down there, or you can't increase transit for seniors and disabled persons because you got to commit to the first line, which is expanding all those roads. Don't tell me that people understood that's what they were voting on, because they don't. And if you think you're breaking your faith with them, I agree with Duncan McFetridge. It breaks the faith to do something that impairs public transportation even more than it already has been in San Diego. I just want to say to you, I don't see you guys very often, but thanks for listening.
Mr. Meyer, if this is an organized presentation, 3 speakers need to be up. Mr. McFetridge, you understand that?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the Supervisors Board. Only thing I have to say is we do speak on the sprawl development, and there's two examples that I know of in close to my community. One would be Star Ranch, a 460 dwelling unit in Campo area that they've started on, at least the process, and I think Mr. Horn's district. There's a Meridian, Stonegate Meridian, with a 2,700 dwelling unit off of 15. That's those two examples that increasing of 15, which is would support those two sprawl developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Let me make just a couple of comments. First of all, the reason that Vice Chair Slater Price and I brought this item forward is because at the last Sandag meeting, was just a week ago, last Friday, that there was discussion on the possibility of transferring some of the transit or the road portion of the Transnet 2 over to Transnet transit operations. And also there were the other issues brought up as possibilities to fund transit operations. So that's the reason that we had to late docket this item, because also the Sandag Board is going to be discussing this issue this Friday, and we thought it was important to get this before the board so the board could weigh in on the issue. The goal is to relieve traffic congestion, and let me make one thing really clear. What Transnet is to do in relieving traffic congestion, and when we talk about building more roads and highways with the money that's set aside for that, we're talking about the traffic congestion today, not traffic congestion based on future development. Traffic congestion that exists in this county today, and that's why those specific highways were listed as a part of Transnet 2. And the title of this board letter is right on, Keep the Transnet Promise, because when people voted for this, they voted for it intending that 1/3 of the money would be spent on local streets and road, 1/3 of the money on major highways, and 1/3 on transit. And here we are, just one year into the 40-year sales tax program, and discussion is already taking place of changing that formula. And yes, 3.3% of commuters in this region use transit today, and the numbers according to Sandag projected out to 2030 that 7.4% of the people in this region will use transit. Obviously those numbers are different, peak hours, these are averages, but these are correct numbers and they're Sandag's numbers. So that means that over 90% of the commuters in the San Diego region, well over 90%, you'd use roads and highways now and into the future. One of the reasons I opposed the Transnet extension in 2004 was because the Sandag Board included a provision that the Sandag Board could at any time alter the will of the people, shift Transnet funds from road and highway projects to transit operations. That is a breach of the public trust, in my opinion. Cities and local jurisdictions currently have the ability to transfer their 33% of local road funds to transit operations should they choose to do so, and they don't need Sandag's okay to do that. They can do that by a vote of their council. I personally don't think it's a good idea, but that would be up to the 18 cities to determine that. Furthermore, another recommendation, 60% of the federal stimulus money that comes into this region should be spent on the previously approved Transnet early action projects. These were already voted on by Sandag. That's State Route 76, Interstate 805 at Carroll Canyon, and the Grossmont Station Pedestrian Enhancement Project. The remaining 40% of stimulus funding goes to local cities and counties, and that should be used on one-time capital projects as determined by local jurisdictions. And lastly, We should not support options relating to shifting the vehicle license fee dollars